Hey everybody, today I'm going to walk you through the different settings that are available to you when you create a quiz in Moodle. Okay, if you've never used a quiz in Moodle, a Moodle quiz is an amazing resource because it's self-grading, it gives immediate feedback, students can have multiple chances to be successful if you put in multiple attempts, you can make assignments variable by shuffling random questions or using random number generators, you can change assignment settings to suit class needs by having it be a timed quiz or a day quiz only, or a specific time period. So there's a lot of different availability for you to customize it to whatever your class is doing. So what I want to do is I want to go through the settings so that way people feel a little more comfortable the first time they create a quiz. Okay, so if you go into the Moodle, the first thing I'm going to suggest is that you go to your administration settings and you change your group mode into separate groups and that you force group mode. You need to make sure that you've got in your administration settings, you have to have separate groups selected. So that way you can use separate grouping on specific quizzes if you need to. Now, you don't have to force group mode. I do in my course because I always have more than one class doing it. But if you don't, or you don't want to force it to be, every item to be a group item, then you can leave that as no. But group mode needs to be put on separate groups. So after you've done that in your admin settings, you can go and create a quiz. So go back to your main Moodle page, and I'm not going to show that, but go back to your main Moodle page, create a quiz. Once you've created a quiz, you have all these different options available. You'll do the name and the description like you do any other item on Moodle, but after that there's all these different options, timing, grade, etc., etc. So I just want to go through all those and see what they are. The timing option allows you to choose a specific time and date that you're going to open the quiz and close the quiz. You can also enable a time limit here. Okay? When time expires, you've got three choices of what you want to do when time expires. You can either submit open attempts automatically, like if someone's half through with the quiz, it'll automatically submit what they've done so far. You can do attempts must be submitted before time expires, or they don't get counted, so they get a 0 if they don't click the submit button. Or you can say there's a grace period that won't let them attempt anymore, but they can still submit what they've done so far if they've done the majority of it. Okay. You also can do, you can change that grace period. So let's say if you're doing a timed quiz and like the internet lags out at the end and they weren't able to submit on time, you can give like a 10-minute time window for them to have a submission grace period. So that's how the timing section works. In the grade section, you've got how you want the grade to be arranged in your grade book. Okay, generally the grade category is not something I mess with, but you can change this to a specific grading category if you have this set in your grade book. Attempts allowed is where you can change the number of attempts you want kids to have. Now, if you are doing like a straight up quiz, you may just want one attempt and it may be timed. However, a lot of times I use the quiz to do assignments in my class, and I have the assignments set so they'll have different quiz questions or random generated quiz questions. So I'll allow multiple attempts, sometimes 3, sometimes 5, sometimes unlimited, because I really don't care if they try it more than once as long as they are practicing the work, which they're doing. You can change the grading method as well to average grade, highest grade, the first attempt, or the last attempt. So that's what's in the grade section. On the layout section, you can change the way that the questions are laid out. They can be shuffled randomly or shown on your edit screen quiz. So you can change the quiz so that way you want certain pages in a specific way, or you can get it so that they're shuffled. Okay, you can do a new page every question, or you can do all the questions on one page. It just depends on what you do. I prefer a new page for every question, but if you're wanting to print, you can change this to all questions on one page, and then you can print that one page if you want to print out a copy of your quiz. Okay, you can change the navigation method to free or sequential. Generally, free just means you can go back to a number if you wanted to skip to it. Sequential means they have to do it in that order. Okay. Additionally, there's some other ones. Question behavior. Do you want the questions to shuffle within the question? Yes. But if you're not already pulling random questions, this is what you want to do. But if you are already pulling random questions from your bank, you don't need to do this. But I generally just leave this clicked because I always want to shuffle. How questions behave is pretty interesting. There is a lot of different methods here. The ones that I use the most are adaptive mode and deferred feedback. And essentially what they do is this. With adaptive mode, Adaptive mode makes it so that when a kid tries a problem, they can click check to check the problem. If they get it wrong, they can attempt again and click check again to get it right. But it takes a certain percentage off of the question for getting it wrong. So if you have your adaptive mode penalty at 33%, then they would get a 67 on that question on the second attempt. 67% of it would be correct. So however many points it's worth, they would get 67% of the points. You could also do adaptive mode with no penalties. If you just create an assignment for them to practice over and over again, you would do this because it wouldn't assess a penalty on that grade. Okay, you can do manual grading where you have to go in and grade it, but that kind of defeats the purpose of doing a Moodle quiz. You can do interactive mode. I've honestly never used it. You can do immediate feedback or deferred feedback. Immediate feedback is after the end of each question. It'll give them feedback on how they did on the question, but you have to input that feedback in the individual questions. On deferred feedback, it won't allow them to check the answers in the entire quiz as they go. They'll have to finish the entire quiz, and then at the end, it'll give them feedback. Okay, so if you're doing a real quiz, like a quiz you don't want kids to look at things and they're trying to take it like a test, then you use deferred feedback. Okay. With each attempt builds on the last, if you've got multiple attempts built in, like in a deferred feedback mode, then when they go into their second attempt, every answer from their first attempt is still in there. They'll just have to change the ones that they want to change. Okay, here is a specific reading of all the things that are on here, and I'll show you where you can find all this information later on. So that's everything I just went through. Okay. With review options, this is how you're going to review the attempt. You can set the options so that way they can see things during the attempt, after, while it's open, or while it's closed. Okay. Generally, you don't want them to see stuff during the attempt, which is why these are all unchecked. Now they can see that they made the attempt, but they can't see whether it's correct and what marks they got or feedback. Okay. If you want immediately after the attempt them to see the marks, but not whether or not they got it correct, you would leave it like this. If it's something you want them to see what they have done wrong, you would click whether correct, whether correct, whether correct, and that way they would be able to see it. So it just depends on what you want them to be able to see after the fact. With display, this displays how it's going to display the results from the quiz when you go look at the quiz results. So this is pretty straightforward. You want decimal places, blah, blah. Extra restrictions on attempts. You can add a password so that way they have to have a password to access the quiz. You can enforce a delay, which is a pretty interesting thing. If you want them to have like 15 minutes to study again and you want to force them, you don't want them to just retry right away, you can enforce a 15-minute delay and enable it. Then they can't make a second attempt until after that delayed period has passed. Okay. For browser security, leave it on full screen pop-up with some JavaScript security. That's the most secure option they have, and it makes it harder for kids to cheat on the quiz. Overall feedback, you can give feedback based on numerical grade after the assessment is submitted. So, like if they get 100%, you say, great, you didn't get anything wrong. With a 80%, you can say, good job, but try again, whatever you want. For common module settings, if you want them to see it, you have to click show. If you want it to be invisible, you click hide. You're going to want it in separate groups. Now you'll have an option box here if you didn't force separate groups like I did on my page, in which case change it to separate groups so that way different classes will have different sets of grades in your grade book. For grouping, you can change groups into a grouping to allow you to choose a particular grouping to see the assignment, such as SPED kids, for example. If you want a special ed version of the quiz that is less difficult or has less material to go through, then you can make a special one and then change this grouping so that only kids in that grouping can see it. Here's where you can restrict access to the quiz. Like for instance, if you're going on winter break and you don't want them to do it during winter break, you could enable it that it's going to not allow access. Okay. Once you've finished with the quiz, when you go onto your Moodle page and you click on it, like this quiz had 3 attempts, or sorry, I won 82 attempts. So you would actually go into that quiz from the main page and then click on this blue link where it says attempts however many. And it'll take you to a page that starts at the top with a report. Okay, from this report you can say attempts are in progress, already finished, never submitted, so you can filter based on that. You can show the report. If for some reason you've made a mistake and you want to change something, you can change that and then you can check them and regrade all of them so that way it assesses the change on the questions that you've made. Okay, Some helpful resources that you can go to are Moodle HQ and Moodle Docs. If you actually search for these in Google, you can find them. They're also linked from. But Moodle HQ is the YouTube channel used by Moodle to offer a range of videos to help, and Moodle Docs is Moodle's documentation and instructions. If you have any questions or comments about this, you can contact me at my email, which is jsanders@nisdtexas.org, and I should be able to get back to you pretty quick. Thanks for listening.